Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, dated 5th July 2024. Today again we will be discussing some important topics that has appeared in today's The Hindu and The Indian Express newspapers, which are very relevant for your exam. In our first topic, we'll look into next 5-year climate agenda for India. After that, we'll look into the status of dairy sector in India. Next, we will look into various aspects of Stampede and crowd management, particularly in context of recent incident that has happened in Hathras, where many people got killed. After that, we'll look into various methods of the disinvestment that are followed by Government of India. After that, we'll look into the basic detail about polio virus and its various strains. At the end, we will look into some prelims snippets which will help you in excelling your prelims exam. So stay tuned. Our first topic is 5-year climate agenda for India. The context of this topic is that a lead editorial has published recently in the Hindu newspaper and which is focusing on the climate change agenda for next 5 years. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 3, environmental pollution and degradation and conservation. So before starting, I think many of you would relate with the fact that there are few of our friends and relatives, we can say, who focus on giving lot of advices, and also they does lot of talks, but in actual sense, in practical terms, their talks doesn't materialize very well on the ground. And this is what was happening in the climate change related talks for past few decades, where most of the countries, particularly the developing countries who were leading the climate change related talks, were talking a lot, were making various plans, but these plans, these climate change related actions were not materializing very well on the ground. But in last 1 decade, India have taken lead, where instead of being only a hesitant participant, India was able to shape the various climate change related narratives, and it has also taken lead in developing various institutions. For example, International Solar Alliance, which is focusing on the theme that there is one sun, one world, and there should be one grid, which should focus on sharing of the solar energy across the world. This International Solar Alliance is an intergovernmental organization which aims to promote the solar energy among the member countries. It is headquartered in Gurgaon, India. Now, what is the concept of International Solar Alliance? Particularly, in this alliance, there are 121 countries which are either lying completely or partially between the tropics, and their focus is on to harness the solar energy and make the technology that is harnessing the solar energy freely available to all the nations. Another mission, that is CDRI, or Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, which was developed in 2019 on the sidelines of UN Climate Action Summit held in New York. In this CDRI, India have also taken lead to develop this institution, which consists of various national governments, various private agencies, various multilateral developmental banks, among others. Now, this CDRI mainly focuses on developing those kind of infrastructure which are resilient to the changing climate, which can tackle the increased incidents of climate change related incidents like increased cases of cyclones, etc. It focuses on increasing the awareness and commitments of the government and other stakeholders, particularly the private companies, individuals and others. It also improves the availability of knowledge system, sharing of those knowledge system and particularly the traditional knowledge system. It also focuses on increasing the availability of technical assistance and improve the capacities, especially of the least development countries and the poor countries. Then another institution named Global Biofuel Alliance, which was developed on the sidelines of G20 summit held in New Delhi. Some of the members who have taken the lead initiated this alliance was Argentina, Bangladesh, Brazil, India, Italy, Mauritius, South Africa, UAE and USA. Now, this Global Biofuel Alliance focuses on the increased adoption of biofuels and increased focus on the bioenergy. And this can also help in reducing the import bills that most of the countries are particularly giving for the imports of the crude oil. Then it can also decrease the use and adoption of the fossil fuels, which can help in reducing the carbon emission and various greenhouse gas emissions. Then a Green Development Pact, for which India have also taken lead, or it was also signed on the sidelines of the G20 summit held in New Delhi, which is providing a roadmap to the sustainable future, and it is focusing on some concrete actions that can be taken to address the various social, economical and environmental aspects of the sustainable development. Then some of the bolder and ambitious emission mitigation targets that India have taken. For example, Prime Minister of India have given the Panchamrit targets, or the 5 vows or the 5 pledges that is taken. The first is India will increase its non-fossil energy capacity to 500 gigawatt by 2030. Then India will meet its 50% of energy requirements from renewable energy by 2030. India will reduce the total projected carbon emissions by 1 billion ton from now to 2030. Then by 2030, India will reduce the carbon intensity of its economy by 45%, which have been increased. Earlier target was 35%. And by 2070, India will achieve the target of net zero. So what does net zero means? It refers to a balance where emission of greenhouse gases are offset by the absorption of equivalent amount from the atmosphere. So let's take a basic example. For example, this is an industry which is, let's suppose, emitting 100 billion ton of carbon. Just for example, these are few industries and they are emitting almost 100 billion ton of carbon. Now, what happened? They are also using some of the new technology that is offsetting or the absorption of the these carbon emissions equivalent amount. Let's suppose technologies like carbon capture and storage. Now, let's suppose these industries are using this technology where they are absorbing the equivalent amount of carbon that they were earlier emitting from the atmosphere by use of some newer technologies, and let's suppose they balance these emission by these absorption, and this is the condition of net zero, which India have made target to achieve by 2070. Then some of the other India's domestic economic policies which are focusing on the sustainable development and climate change related activities. For example, India have developed a carbon trading scheme. This carbon credit trading scheme that India have developed is focusing on proper sharing of the carbon credits. What happens? Let's take another example. Let's suppose this is a company A and this is a company B. Both have a reduction commitment of 10%. Means both have been given a mandatory target that they have to reduce their global greenhouse gas emissions by 10%. Now, and both of these have same greenhouse gas emission level. But this company A, which have adopted newer technologies, which is more affordable, have reduced the emission target by 15%. But this company B, which is using some old or obsolete technologies, which are less affordable, can only reduce the 5% greenhouse gas emissions. Now what can happen? This company B can ask this company A that you please transfer this 5% of excess carbon credits that you have achieved and I will pay you some amount. In this way, what will happen? This company B will also be able to achieve 10% of its commitment, and this company A, which is using some newer technology, can materialize some monetary value for their newer technologies. And this is how carbon credit trading mechanism is actually being done. that the company who have excess of carbon credits can sell or can trade with the companies who are in need of the carbon credits. Then other economic policies, for example, the green hydrogen mission which center have adopted, which is mainly focusing on the adoption of the hydrogen. The key components of the scheme or the mission is that almost 17,490 crore for the strategic intervention for the green hydrogen transition program, which is focusing on transition from fossil fuels to the hydrogen use. Then almost 1,466 crore for the pilot projects, especially in some of the targeted districts of some states. Then almost 400 crore for the research and development for newer technologies related to the hydrogen, and almost 388 crore for other components. So we have seen from solar energy in the International Solar Alliance, then building resilient infrastructure, then for the adoption of the biofuels, then for the adoption of the hydrogen. India have consistently used and focused and promoted the newer technologies that can handle the climate change. Then the ethanol blending program, which is focusing on the promotion and use of and adoption of the biofuels. For example, almost 650 crore liters ethanol has been supplied to oil marketing companies by the sugar mill since 2014 to 2015, and almost 32,170 crore oil marketing companies have paid to the sugar mills, which in turn helped the sugar mill to pay remuneration to the farmers. So this bioethanol policy which Government of India is promoting is first of all helping in reducing the fossil fuel emissions, because this is being blended with several fossil fuels. Second is that when these oil marketing companies are buying these ethanols from the sugar mills, these value or the money is ultimately also being paid to the farmers, who are getting some better remuneration, and their profitability from the agriculture is increasing. So not only it is helping in the climate change mitigation and adaptation, it is also helping in more sustainable development, more inclusive growth and development. Then some other economic policies, for example, National Solar Mission, which is focusing on more of the solar energy consumption and distribution, developing proper grid for solar energy. Then the Mission Life, which stands for Lifestyle for Environment, which PM Modi have pitched at the COP26 summit, which is a mass movement of environmental conscious lifestyle, where we as individuals are changing our lifestyles toward a more climate conscious lifestyle, where, for example, we are increasing the adoption of electronic vehicles, reducing the fossil fuel consumptions, among others. And the Mission Life emphasizes on the production, energy and conservation and focusing on the sustainable living. Then the FAME India scheme, which is the faster adoption and manufacturing of electrical vehicles in India, which is focusing on developing some charging stations in metros and other million plus cities, smart cities, cities of hilly states. So mainly this FAME India is focusing on adoption of electronic vehicles. Now, I want to ask a question to you people. You people comment your answers in the comment box, that which is the scheme which is implementing this FAME India scheme. Then, what should be the path ahead or path which lies ahead? First of all, as PM Modi has pitched for COP28 edition in India, we have to develop a consensus on some of the major issues. For example, in the G20 summit, there has been a lot of difficulty in developing the proper consensus on getting a New Delhi Pact. And that is where there are a lot of deliberation at different diplomatic channels are used, diplomatic levels are used to bring a consensus. And to what parameters, to what levels, to what are the things on which India have to develop the consensus is, first, we have to develop that industries focus on this thing, that there should not be any investment in oil and gas. But so it focuses on reduction in use of fossil fuels. Then developing countries get shielded from the climate change related events. For example, increased incidences of cyclones, droughts. So they are being provided with newer technologies which by which they can get shielded, they can remain focused, that they can face these climate changing related events. Then the narrative of equity. This, there is also need for building a consensus on this. Means the climate change related talk should be based on the equity principle. Whatever the country which is highest emitter should focus more on moving towards the sustainable development, should move towards the adoption of the green energy. They should provide more compensation to the much affected countries, which are the least developed countries and the poor countries who are facing more burnt of the climate changes. So these countries which are more polluting the environment, who are the major contributors for the greenhouse gas emissions, should pay to these poor countries and the least developed countries, so that they can get better compensated and they can address these climate changes incidences. Then India should also take leadership in global institutions. Okay, apart from these institutions which India have already developed, the COP summits which are happening, apart from these other multilateral institutions, India should focus on climate change. For example, BRICS, ASEAN, these are institutions where there is need for taking lead, that climate change remain an important agenda for the talks. Then there is also need for going wider, that we just don't focus on developing institutions, rather focus should be on increasing awareness and adoptions of these sustainable practices. Then in India particularly, there are need for state plans, because ultimately center can make policies, but the ultimate implementation lies with the state governments. So there is need for state climate action plans, which can be made with the various that plan can be worked with in collaboration with the various academias. For example, Council of Energy, Environment and Water, which is a think tank based in Delhi. This is working with many of the state governments like Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, to develop more climate resilient infrastructure, and more climate resilient talks are happening by the more academias and the state collaboration. Then another thing that can happen is the 16th Finance Commission, which has been recently formed. There can be one of the parameter for devolution of the funds, that the climate change actions that are being taken by the particular states. Okay, this can also be one of the parameters. So this Finance Commission is actually set up under the Article 280. Now you people comment your answers in the comment box, that who is the head of 16th Finance Commission. So the experts have said, they have advocated that 16th Finance Commission can keep one of the parameter for the devolution of funds to the states as the climate action that is being taken by the particular states. Then more funds can be devolved to the panchayats and the municipalities who are at the grassroots level, that can help in better implementation of these programs. Then there can be a unified data for the measurement, reporting and the verification architecture at the state level. At the state level, whatever the actions the states are taking, there can be a proper formula, proper framework that can measure that what actions actually the states are taking. What are the targets that they have achieved? What are the emission targets that they have achieved? And there should be a proper mechanism for verification. India at this juncture have a seat, okay? And India have a condition that where world is listening, world is looking at India to take a lead in climate change related talks, climate change related actual works. And India have that capability, that India can provide a path to the world for climate change. A prelims previous year question that was asked in 2016 related to this topic is that International Solar Alliance was launched at United Nations Climate Change Conference in 2015. This is a correct option. The alliance includes all the member countries of the United Nations. This is incorrect. Only A option, one only was correct here. Now moving towards our second topic, that is dairy sector in India. The context of this topic is that Indian dairy farmers have been facing challenges in disposing of unproductive cattle and problem of surplus skimmed milk powder. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your UPSC prelims, economic and social development, and syllabus of your GS paper 3, economics of animal rearing and agriculture marketing. So the background of this topic is that cooperative and private dairies have said that almost an estimate of 3.3 to 3.25 lakh ton of skimmed milk powder stocks are at the start of the production year, which is starting before the monsoon. Now this data has been compiled by the business heads of the various milk marketing companies like Amul, Mother Dairy, etc. So what is this skimmed milk powder or SMP? This is the generally a cow milk contains 3.5% of fat and 8.5% of solids, not fat, on an average, with the same at the 6.5% and 9% for the buffalo milk. So what happens? The milk is a perishable item. It have a shorter shelf life. It can become not fit for the consumption in a shorter duration, and that's why it is processed and converted into various solid fat items like ghee, butter, etc. Then it is also converted into skimmed milk powder that can help in increasing the shelf life and providing a better value to these milk producers. Now what is happening at this point of time? There is a flush season where these companies are with lot of inventory and lot of stocks of ghee, butter and skimmed milk products. And this flush season generally starts after the monsoon, and after this monsoon period till December, all the production of the milk increases, and obviously it increases the production of these fat products, whether it is ghee, butter or the skimmed milk products. So these companies are already have lot of stocks, and they have entered into a flush season where the milk production will increase manifold, and obviously these products like ghee, butter and skimmed milk products production will also increase, and that is where these companies are facing issues. Since we are talking about this topic, let's have a brief look about the dairy sector in India. This is a data that is given by the Department of Animal Husbandry and Dairying. This says that livestock plays a very important role in economy. Almost 25 to 30 million people in India are dependent on the livestock for their livelihood, and it contributes almost 15% in income of small farm households, as against as an average of 12% for all rural households. In India, almost 86% of farmers are small and marginal farmers. The livestock plays a very important role in ensuring that their income remains sustained. And this sector contributes almost 9% in the employment of India, and almost 4% to India's GDP is the contribution of the livestock sector. And it provides almost 65% of employment in the rural population. So that shows that the major of the rural population is dependent on the livestock for their sustenance. So what are the various problems related with the surplus of these skimmed milk products? First is that the reason of this surplus is that there is a demand supply mismatch. Means the companies have done excess procurement, but the demand hasn't increased. The reason for that is that the major demand of these products come in various festive seasons and various functions like wedding, etc., which is not at present. So that leads to less demand, and obviously there is demand supply mismatch, so the prices will go down and there will be low margins for these companies, and obviously this will make non-remunerative to the farmers who are dependent on the livestock. And that's why, to address this issue, there is a subsidy that is provided by the Maharashtra government at this point of time. The exact details haven't came out still, but there are experts believe that this can help in to address the issues to some extent. One of the other major issue is that the exports of the skimmed milk powder haven't been very good in past few years. It has almost a potential of 1000 rupee crore value, above 1000 rupee crore value. In past few years, in one decade, there has been instances in that in 1 year, our livestock products have gained very significant amounts. But for the past few years, the exports have declined. And one of the reason for is that the international market price have also declined. So that is also leads to a conclusion that due to lower exports, these companies are having a higher stocks. Then some of the other challenges related to the dairy sector in particular is that the 80% of market of this dairy products are still unorganized, where lot of issues are being faced by these farmers, that they are not getting proper payments. The prices are not being given properly to the farmers. Then there are less use of technologies, particularly for checking the quality of milks, etc. Then there is lack of cold storage facilities. Okay, that also leads that we have just talked that this is a perishable item. It have a very short shelf life. So that is also leads to lot of losses because of non-processing of these milks in particular. Then there is a gap in cold chain and transport facilities. Lack of cold storage transport facilities are also leading into the loss of these milks. Then involvement are of lot of intermediaries in there, and that also creates lot of issues where the ultimate price that is being given to the farmers is very low. Then there is gaps in the information regarding various helps, various schemes that are provided by the government. Then there is a low technology dissemination from the top to the lower level to the ultimate farmers. Then there is also absence of screening system. There are these, as we have just discussed, that most of these complete livestock sector is mainly unorganized. So that leads that there is no screening system, there is no proper regulation system. Then there is also lack of infrastructure, whether it is the physical infrastructure that can help in proper processing of milk products or cold storage infrastructure facilities that can increase the shelf life of the milk products. Everything is lacking. Then there is also manipulation of the quality of milk by the farmers. This is the issue that we have just talked initially also, that the technology is still being used by these unorganized sector is obsolete, and that is lead to ultimately manipulation of the quality of milk, and the farmers are not getting the proper prices. Then the acceptability of the consumer base. So what happens? There are apprehensions that some of the people of the society are still not very comfortable with these skimmed milk products. They want fresh milk, and that is also leading to a low consumer base for these skimmed milk products. Then there is less penetration to the rural market. There are supply chain gaps, there are low information, and that is why all the technologies, all the scheme are still not moving towards the rural market. Then there is lack of transparent milk pricing system. For example, ENAM, etc., that has been followed for price discovery, better price discovery of the agricultural products. There isn't availability of such kind of price discovery system for the milk, and that is also leading to loss of the farmers. And just whatever the data just we have seen that our livestock sector is almost consist of 80% of the unorganized sector. This data, all this data is given by the Department of Animal Husbandries and Dairying. So what are some of the government initiatives that are being taken to address the issues in the dairy sector? First is the Rashtriya Gokul Mission, which aims to develop and conserve the indigenous breeds and enhancing their production and productivity with the central assistance. Then Dairy Entrepreneurship Development Scheme, which is being implemented with the objective of generation of the self-employment opportunities in the dairy sector, covering activities such as enhancement of the milk production, procurement, preservation, transportation, processing, and marketing of the milk products with the central assistance. Then National Program for Dairy Development, which is being implemented to create an infrastructure for the milk product processing and the marketing. As proper supply chain is developed, proper infrastructure is being developed. Then e-Pashu Hart portal is developed, which is focusing on the national mission on bovine productivity, and this was developed for the connecting breeders and the farmers regarding the availability of quality bovine germplasm, and this can help in getting a proper better availability of the germplasm that are needed for the better breeds of these bovines. Then other technological initiatives for the dairy sectors, for example, launch of e-Gopala app that can help in generation of wealth through productive livestock. Then largest semen station in the government sector is established at Purnia, Bihar. Then inauguration of in vitro fertilization lab at Patna. Then artificial insemination through sex shorted semen for production of female calves with 90% accuracy to be launched. Then use of IVF technology, in vitro fertilization technology at the farmer's doorstep is also being used. That can also help in getting a better bovine breeds. But what else needs to be done? First of all, there is need for proper integration of the MSMEs, that MSMEs should be actively encouraged by the government to engage in the milk production and processing industry. This can help in providing, first of all, jobs to the rural youth. This can also help in enhancing the value of the milk products. Then there is alignment of the Skill India mission with the dairy sector, where these rural youths can be provided skills that can help them in getting better employment in the dairy sectors. Then further research and development is needed to increase the milk productivity, and particularly the bovine breeds can be also developed with more research and development. Then the extension services means the forward and the backward linkages should be upgraded, where the proper medicines, medical facilities, proper fodder is being given to the bovine, and ultimately proper marketing system, price discovery system is also developed so that farmers are getting proper remuneration. Then the initiatives like Foot and Mouth Disease Mukt Bharat by the government of India to prevent and cure foot and mouth disease in the cattle, there is need for better implementation, because this is leading to loss of a lot of milk productivity and milk production. Then there can be a food for thought, that minimum support price kind of thing can be provided to the livestock dependent persons, farmers. Then cooperative sector engaged in the dairy sector needs to be regulated. Experts believe that there are a lot of corruptions involved here, that there are lack of proper regulations, lack of proper elections. So there is need for more regulations in the cooperative sector to prevent the irregularities and improve their functioning, enhance their functionings. Then there is also need for inclusion of skimmed milk powder in the commodities market and merchandise exports for India scheme, and it will help in providing profitable return to the small and medium milk processing industries. Then as we have just talked, that government can provide some subsidy in the exports for the skimmed milk products that can help in increasing the exports of these products. Then for the buffer stock, government can provide some subsidy or some help, some assistance in building the proper storage facilities. The private agencies, these infrastructure can also be developed with the PPP model. Then there is need for use of technology that can help in better price discovery, and more of the infrastructure, particularly the cold storage infrastructure and the milk processing infrastructure needs to be developed to address the issues of the dairy sector, and this can help in doubling farmers' income in true sense. A mains previous year question that was asked in 2015 from this topic is that livestock rearing has a big potential for providing non-farm employment and income in rural areas. Discuss suggesting suitable measures to promote this sector in India. You can try and practice this question that is related to the topic we have just discussed. Our next topic is Stampede. The context of this topic is that at least 120 people, almost all women, were killed on Tuesday, July 2, in a stampede during a religious gathering in Uttar Pradesh, Hathras district. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS Paper 3 Disaster Management. So what does a stampede means? It is an impulsive mass movement of a crowd that often results in injuries and deaths. The other definition that can be given is the disruption of the orderly movement of the crowd leading to injuries and the fatalities of the people. So why do stampedes kill? First of all, the traumatic asphyxia that is there. So it means that there is a partial or the complete cessation of respiration due to the external compression. What happens since the place is already jam packed, the place is already very crowded, and when there is a stampede like situation, there is an external compression that is happening on the body of the person, and that is leading to a non-respiratory situation, that people are not being able to respirate properly, and this lead to traumatic asphyxia. Then the myocardial infarction, which means the heart attack. What happens when this external compression happens? There are cases that blood could not flow properly to the hearts, and that leads to the condition of the heart attacks. So how does human psychology lead to the stampedes? First of all, this stampede always take place during the mass gatherings. This is triggered or made worse by the panic that is created among the situation. That can be created by some fake news, like news of the deaths or any deaths like fire hazard had happened, etc. So majorly these stampedes are triggered by the panic. Then there are panic producing situation. For example, cooperative pattern of the behavior is disturbed. Let's suppose all the peoples in this line were moving very with proper cooperation among others, but let's suppose this cooperation have disturbed. Now this may create a situation of panic among different people, and people while panicking may disturb each other, and that can create a situation of the stampede. The Neil J. Smulser, which was a famous sociologist, he said that main trigger of this stampede can be a craze. For example, the religious craze that was there in the Hathras incident, or the craze that can happen, for example, to look for any famous celebrity. For example, people do attend several programs that are related to various celebrities, etc. So there may be a case that this may get driven by the craze to look for that person, to listen to that person, to touch that person who is there, who is the famous person there. So this craze may lead to a trigger situation, a panic situation among all others, and that can ultimately lead to a situation like stampedes. Then some of the other factors that can lead to the stampedes. For example, lack of light. So let's suppose there was this room, there may be a room or there may be an auditorium which was full with the people, and suddenly if light is gone, this may create the panic situation and stampedes can happen. Then the crowd flow not being divided for the different crowds. Okay, for example, if there are different lines for the old age people, for the children, for the women, for the men, for the disabled, it may lead to better crowd management rather than if everyone is going in the same line. Then the collapse of barriers or the buildings. For example, these kind of cases where a railway bridge have collapsed in Maharashtra few years back, that have created stampede like situation. Then blocked exits or the evacuation routes. Some of the auditoriums or the buildings, if they are not following proper building norms, proper maps are not being followed, and if there are less exit routes, in a case of the panic, that may further trigger the panic among the people, and that can create a stampede like situation. Then the poor design of hardware, such as the revolving door at the entrance. Let's suppose there was a door that was being opened, or that people were trying to open, and that is not opening properly, and this can create a situation where this particular event may go haphazard, that people are thinking that door will not open, and this news may further spread further panic in the people, and that can create a stampede like situation. Then the fire hazards that are also not being properly followed, and can lead to stampede like situations. So what are the NDMA, or the National Disaster Management Authority, guidelines for the crowd management? First of all, for the law enforcement agencies like police, etc., there is need for regulation of the vehicular traffic activities. This will help in ensuring that the place is less crowded. Then there is need for regulation of unauthorized stalls and the parking, because this will help in free movement of the people in those areas. Then for the organization, there is need for proper route map, and proper emergency kit should be there at the organization venue. Then there is need for barricading properly for all the lines, for all the levels. Then there is need for CCTV cameras that can be monitored properly by the law enforcement agency, and they can handle properly any unfortunate incident. Then there is need for research and medical emergency services, which can be used in the cases of the crowd mismanagement. Then for the participants, there is need for following instructions, whatever the instructions are being given by the volunteers of the organization, or by the law enforcement agencies, by the police officials, etc. Then there is also need for staying away and remaining very calm and alert throughout that venue. Our next topic is methods of disinvestment. The context of this topic is that Care Edge Ratings had said that at current market cap levels, the center has scope to raise as much as 11.5 lakh crore from disinvestment of public sector enterprises, while still retaining a majority stake in these public sector enterprises firms. So this brings us to a topic of the disinvestment, which is an important topic of your GS paper 3, which pertains to the specific topic mobilization of resources and government budgeting. So what does disinvestment means? It is the sale or liquidation of assets by the government, usually central and state public sector enterprises, projects or other fixed assets. So why does government go for the disinvestment? It can go for reducing the financial burden on the government finances. For example, the fiscal deficit. That is the difference between total expenditure and the total revenue, except the borrowings that government is doing. So to finance those fiscal deficit, government can go for the disinvestment. Then for opening up the market for the private firms, there might be a case that these private companies are better and efficient in doing that work that government was actually earlier doing. So that can increase the efficiency of those company or those sector. In this case also, government can go for the disinvestment. Then for the supporting the liquidity measures in the market, proper liquidity is there, that is also one of the reasons government can go for the disinvestment. Then to raise money to facilitate the long-term government goals. Okay, for funding the educational scheme, health schemes, etc., government can offload some of the stakes in the public sector enterprises. Then also to channelize the resources to more productive avenues by reducing the expenditure on the loss-making firms. For example, government have invested in various companies like Concor, which was Container Corporation of India, Pawan Hans, which was a helicopter service providing companies. So government have thought that, as the Prime Minister of India have also said, that government is no business in doing business. And especially in these sectors like container management and the helicopter services, providing for the helicopter services, the private sector can do better. So that's why the government, by offloading their stakes in these companies, can channelize their resources to better avenues, like for developing better education and health facilities. Then it can also improve the return of investment of underperforming firms. What happens? That let's suppose some part of stake has been disinvested. Now after coming of the private sector, the efficiency of that firm might increase, and that can help in increasing the profitability of that firms. So government in 2030 2023 to 24 have made a disinvestment target of 51,000 crore, which was down nearly 21% from the budget estimates of the current year. Then what are the various methods through which Government of India do disinvestment? First is the strategic disinvestment, where there is substantial sale of the government shareholding of a CPSE along with transfer of the management control. Here almost 51% of the stakes are given to the other players. Then the minority stake sale. There are different methods through which government do the minority stake sales. Under this, the government is a major shareholder in any one of the public sector enterprises, and the management control is also with the central government or the government. Then in this minority stake sale, government follow various SEBI approved method. For example, the initial public offering, where let's suppose there was a company where 100% stakes or ownership was lying with the Government of India. Now government want to dilute 10% of its ownership, and it wants this company to be listed on the stock market. So they can come with their IPO or the initial public offering, where all the high net worth individuals, foreign institutional investors, then the retail investors can participate, can subscribe to this IPO, and the shares can be made available to these investors. And this is the method that which is called as initial public offering, where the company get listed on the stock market. After this initial public offering, if again government want to disinvest some part or offload some part of their company or some stakes in the company, they can come with the further public offer or the FPO, which comes after this IPO. That let's suppose the company came with the IPO, and this was the first time when the company was getting listed on the stock market. Then if it wants to further dilute some part of their company, then it will come with the FPO. Then offer for sale is there, where the promoters offload their stakes that were there with them initially. Okay. Then there is buyback of shares, where these companies generally buy back their shares which was earlier in the open market. A prelims previous year question that is related to this topic is that why is Government of India disinvesting its equity in the central public sector enterprises? Then this was asked in 2011. So the first statement says that the government intends to use the revenue earned from the disinvestment mainly to pay back the external debt, and the government no longer intends to retain the management control of the CPSEs or the central public sector enterprises. Both these statements were incorrect, and D, neither 1 nor 2 was the correct answer given by the official answer key. Because the main aim may or may not be to pay the external debt, and there might be on the case-to-case basis that Government of India can decide that whether they want to retain the management control or not. So both these statements were incorrect, and D option was correct, that is neither 1 nor 2. Our next topic is polio virus. The context of this topic is that WPV1, which is endemic only in Pakistan and Afghanistan, is showing signs of resurgence since 2023. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your UPSC prelims, general science, and syllabus of your GS paper 2, health, government policies and interventions. So what is polio? It is a highly infectious viral disease which mainly affects the children. And as per the WHO, the virus is transmitted from person to person mainly through fecal oral route. This polio virus have three strains, P1, P2 and P3. The P2 strain was eradicated globally in 1999. India have attained a polio-free status in 2014 after successfully eliminating the wild P1 and P3 strains. It should be noted that all the three strains have almost same symptoms, but there are genetic differences in all the three strains. And it was March 2014 when WHO have certified India and South Asia region polio free. There are mainly two vaccines which are available. One is OPV and second is the IPV or inactivated polio vaccine. So in inactivated polio vaccine or IPV, we have killed or formalized virus which is inactivated, whereas in OPV or oral polio vaccine, we have live attenuated virus. This IPV is generally intramuscular vaccine which is given in muscles, whereas OPV is given orally. This IPV induces the circulating antibodies and there are no local immunity, whereas in OPV we have both humoral and intestinal immunity. It prevents paralysis, does not prevent the reinfection by wild polio viruses, whereas OPV prevents paralysis and intestinal reinfection, that there should not be any reinfection after this OPV vaccine is given in the intestines. This IPV is not very useful in epidemics because there is difficulty in supplying the proper availability of these IPV, whereas this OPV is effective in controlling the epidemics. And this is IPV is much more costlier than the OPV, but this IPV does not require stringent condition during storage and transportation, whereas OPV requires to be stored and transported at a sub-zero temperature unless stabilized. India have several immunization program. For example, Mission Indradhanush was there, which was also focusing on the vaccine implementation, immunization related to the polio disease. A previous year question that was asked in 2016 related to the Mission Indradhanush is that Mission Indradhanush launched by the Government of India pertains to. This is the option A, immunization of children and pregnant women was correct here. Now we will move towards prelim snippets. So our first topic in this is DGCA, or Directorate General of Civil Aviation, which is a regulatory body in the field of civil aviation, primarily dealing with the safety issues, and it is an attached office of the Ministry of the Civil Aviation, and mainly it is responsible for the regulation of air transport services to or from within India and for enforcement of civil air regulation, air safety and airworthiness standards. It coordinates all the regulatory functions with the International Civil Aviation Organization, which is mainly responsible for the International Air Transportation Regulation. The headquarters of the DGCA is in New Delhi. Some of the other functions are that it also administers the domestic airport other than the 4 international airport which are run by the Airport Authority of India. Then it also provides navigation, communication facilities and air traffic services. Then our next topic is PIL, or the public interest litigation. Public means that it is mainly related to the benefit or advantage of community as a whole. Litigation means the process of taking legal action in a court of law with the objective of enforcing a right or seeking a remedy. For example, there was a company that is polluting the New Delhi. So now this pollution is related to the public interest. If a person approaches the Supreme Court, that is a litigation. So who can file this PIL? Anyone can file a PIL. The person filing need not to be directly affected by any kind of injustice directly. This PIL can be filed when the public injury or public wrong is caused by the wrongful act or oversight of state or any public authority, or the basic constitutional or human rights of the weaker section are exploited or denied. This can be filed against a state, central government or the municipal authorities, a private party only if the concerned state government or authority is made a party. How to file a PIL? A PIL can be filed as a writ petition, which is provided under Article 32 of the Constitution. In some instances, the Supreme Court has regarded letter addressed to the courts as a PIL as well. Our next topic is NPS, or the National Pension Scheme, which is a participatory scheme where employees contribute to their pension corpus from their salaries with matching contribution from the government. Earlier, there was old pension scheme which guarantees the lifelong income post the retirement, and government bears the expenditure incurred on these pensions. And there was a monthly payment which was assured, where the amount is equivalent to the 50% of the last drawn salary. So whatever the last drawn salary was of that employee was given as a monthly, the 50% of that amount was given as a monthly pension, and the full burden was being borne by the government. What happened in this NPS or the National Pension Scheme? It is a participatory scheme where both employee and government is contributing equally, and these funds are invested in earmarked investment schemes through pension fund managers. There are pension fund managers who are managing these investments so that these investment can bring better returns. On retirement, the 60% of the corpus, which is tax free, is withdrawn, while the remaining 40% is invested in annuity, which is taxed. There are various benefits which are being offered by the NPS, that it is transparent and cost effective system. It is simple. All the subscriber has to do is to open an account and get a permanent retirement account number or a PRAN number, and it is regulated by Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority with the transparent investment norms and regular monitoring and performance review of the fund manager by NPS Trust. So that ensure that there is a proper watch and regulation that whether these fund managers are properly investing these amounts or these contributions which are coming from the employee or the government. Then our next topic is gharial. Gharial is a freshwater crocodile that lives in the deep, fast-flowing rivers, and some of the characteristic that it have is that compared to alligators and crocodiles, the gharial has a very long and narrow snout instead of wide nose. It is the distribution. If we will talk about the distribution of gharial in India, their largest population lives in three tributaries of the Ganges river, that is Chambal and Girwa rivers in India. The gharial reserves are located in UP, MP and Rajasthan. If we talk about the conservation status, it is critically endangered in IUCN Red List. Then under the Wildlife Protection Act, it is under the Schedule 1, and under the CITES status, it is under the Appendix 1. Some of the conservation initiatives related to the gharial are the breeding centers of Kukrail Gharial Rehabilitation Center in the Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh, and the National Chambal Sanctuary that is located in the Madhya Pradesh, which are some of the conservation initiatives that are taken to conserve the population of the gharial. This was all from today's Analyst. I hope you like this session. All the very best. Keep studying. Thank you.